When it comes to Chevrolet, people often think of the legendary Camaro, the speedy Corvette, or the smooth-riding Impalas cruising down America's highways. But not every Chevy model is an icon. In the 1960s, General Motors produced cars that even they might want to forget. From serious technical flaws, controversial designs, to strange decisions that made buyers shake their heads in disbelief. And in today's video, we'll take a look back at the 10 worst Chevrolet models of the 1960s in a way that any car enthusiast would shudder. Number 1.196 1964, Chevrolet Corvair. Kicking off today's list is a name, bold to the point of being dangerous, the Chevrolet Corvair. This car was completely different from the rest of GM's lineup at the time. Rear engine, air-cooled, a sleek, modern design, with the appearance of a trendy European car. But behind its promising exterior lay a technical disaster. The rear suspension system with a swing axle caused the car to have a tendency to flip over during sharp turns, especially dangerous if the tire pressures on both sides weren't balanced. Even worse, GM initially didn't equip it with a stabilizer bar to save costs, making the situation even more dire. Traffic safety advocate Ralph Nader raised awareness about the Corvair in his famous book, Unsafe at Any Speed. From then on, the reputation of this model was virtually shattered. Chevrolet upgraded the system after 1964, but by then, it was too late. The Corvair became a classic lesson in chasing design while neglecting safety, quite literally. Number 2.196. Chevrolet Impala. At first glance, the 1960 Impala looks like a symbol of America's golden age. With its long body, curvy lines, and luxurious interior, it was the dream of countless car enthusiasts in the 1960s. But what few know is that behind its glamorous exterior, there was a structure that many car enthusiasts bluntly called a safety disaster: the X-frame. The X-frame, while it helped make the car design sleek and lower, was extremely weak in side impacts. Without side beams for protection, the car could easily fold in half like a sheet of paper in a side collision. Driving feel? Many owners described it as loose and terrifying when taking sharp turns. Chevrolet finally abandoned the X-frame in 1965. But for nearly 7 years, millions of Impalas and other Chevy models had to endure this design. So, if you're looking for a classic to restore, the 1960 Impala might be beautiful to admire. But to drive, you might want to reconsider. Number 3, 1961-1965, Chevrolet Corvair Greenbrier. As one of the many models in the Corvair 95 series, the Greenbrier was created by Chevrolet to directly compete with the VW microbus. At first glance, it seemed like an ideal family vehicle, spacious, capable of carrying 8-9 people, convenient sliding doors, and a design like a precursor to the minivan. But behind the wheel, many drivers had to pray every time they took a turn or went downhill. Built on the Corvair platform, this van had a rear engine and a swing axle suspension system, a combination that was extremely hard to control, especially when mounted on a short, tall body without power steering. The driving experience was as wobbly as a rowboat. The brakes were so weak that you had to schedule an appointment if you wanted to stop quickly. Although the engine was more powerful than the VW bus, the Greenbrier was underpowered, unstable, and too specialized to be a true family vehicle. It's no surprise that GM discontinued this line after just a few years. A good idea, but executed terribly. Number 4.1962, Chevrolet Chevy I100. Launched to compete in the affordable compact car segment, the Chevy II came with high expectations. But the basic model, the Chevy I100, equipped with a 4-cylinder engine, 153 cubic inch displacement, left many drivers sighing as soon as they sat behind the wheel. The engine only produced about 90 horsepower, far too weak for a 5-passenger sedan. Press the gas pedal hard, the car roars but doesn't move. Want to overtake another vehicle? Prepare yourself to be honked at and yelled at for taking too long. On the highway, the engine screams like it's dying, but the speed is still, crawling like an electric bike going uphill. Many owners back then quickly realized their mistake and upgraded to the 6-cylinder or V8 versions, leaving the 4-cylinder version forgotten. Today, the 153cc Chevy II is rare, not because it's valuable, but because no one bothered to keep it. If performance is what you care about, this is the Chevy you should let sleep peacefully in the past. Number 5.1963, Chevrolet Corvette Split-Window. There's no denying that the 1963 Corvette is one of the most beautiful cars Chevrolet ever produced. The fastback design with the split rear window, giving it a sharp, futuristic, space-age look. But for the driver, that very detail turned out to be a nightmare for visibility. The divider that split the rear window completely blocked the central view. Reversing, looking through the rearview mirror, was nearly impossible. Many owners back then proactively removed the divider just to drive the car safely every day. The negative feedback was so overwhelming that Chevrolet abandoned the split window design after just 1 year. From the 1964 model onwards, the rear window was designed as a single piece. Today, the 1963 Corvette is extremely expensive among collectors. But in terms of real-world driving experience, it served as an expensive lesson. Never sacrifice safety just for the sake of an artistic line. Number 6. 1965-1969. Various Chevrolet models. This was one of the largest recalls in General Motors history, and it involved nearly every Chevrolet model produced from 1965 to 1969, from the Impala, Bel Air, to the Nova and Camaro. The issue was with a seemingly small detail, but the consequences were catastrophic: the engine mount. As the rubber deteriorated over time, the entire engine could lift off the frame every time you stepped on the gas hard. And then the worst happened. The throttle cable would stretch, the throttle would open wide, and the car would suddenly accelerate in an unwanted surge. No brakes, no control, no mercy. After a series of accidents and complaints sent to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, GM was forced to recall 7 million cars to install engine hold-down straps to prevent it from rising up again. But by then, Chevrolet's reputation had taken a severe hit. This serves as a classic example of a mechanical lesson. A small detail can lead to a major disaster. Number 7.1967. Chevrolet Camaro. The Camaro debuted in 1967 to directly compete with the Ford Mustang, carrying high expectations, a sporty design, a variety of engines, and a powerful driving feel. But for car enthusiasts at the time, the first-generation Camaro hit a technical flaw that was incredibly annoying. That flaw was the rear suspension system with a single leaf spring, also known as the mono-leaf spring. It sounds simple, but when you hit the gas hard to take off, the rear axle would jump up, the wheels would slide sideways, and the car would sway as if it wanted to, turn around and yell at you. This phenomenon is called wheel hop, and it made the Camaro lose traction, severely reducing its performance. Chevrolet tried to patch this by installing a torsion bar on just one side, but the result? Still not promising. Many car enthusiasts were forced to completely upgrade the suspension system, even borrowing the design from its sibling, the Pontiac Firebird, to fix it. Overall, the Camaro had an attractive appearance, but the mechanics inside were not finely tuned. Later car enthusiasts often had to upgrade the brakes and adjust the suspension if they wanted to turn this car into a true muscle car. Number 8.1968. Chevrolet Corvette. In 1968, Chevrolet introduced a new chapter for the legendary sports car line, the Corvette C3, with an entirely new design. The rounded body, hidden headlights, and futuristic shape. A car full of allure, both sexy and modern. But behind that dazzling exterior was a nightmare of build quality. The cars came off the production line with misaligned panels, faulty paint, flimsy interiors, and even doors that were difficult to close. Buyers constantly complained about loose parts, plastic materials that were weak and flimsy, and the squeaky sounds that echoed every time the car went over a pothole. All of this was the result of GM speeding up production without fine-tuning the technical aspects for stability. To make matters worse, the big block 427Ci version often overheated because the new front-end design didn't provide enough airflow for cooling at low speeds. Although Chevrolet made significant improvements in the following years, the 1968 Corvette is still considered a forgettable low point in the history of this iconic sports car line. A car, beautiful to look at, but uncomfortable to drive, at least in its first year. Number 9. 1967-1969 Chevrolet Corvette L88. If you're a speed enthusiast, just hearing the name L88 makes your heart race. This was the extreme performance version of the Corvette, featuring an all-aluminum 427Ci engine designed for professional racing. Chevrolet claimed 430 horsepower. In reality, it was nearly 560 horsepower. Sounds tempting, but the problem was, Chevy sold it as a commercial car, and that's where the big issue lay. The L88 had no radio, no heating, no power steering, no, even a radiator fan. That's right, no cooling fan. So, if you got stuck in traffic, hello, overheating. And it didn't stop there. The compression ratio of 12:5:1 required 103 octane fuel, a type of fuel you couldn't find at a regular gas station. Many people bought the car just because they heard the strongest Corvette, but didn't anticipate how extreme it really was. The result? Overheating engine, hard starts, aggressive throttle. Maintenance was complicated. A mechanical fury, only suitable for the racetrack. But for daily street driving? Sorry, that's a nightmare. Number 10.1969 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. The ZL1 was created with one goal in mind: to shatter every record on the drag strip. An all-aluminum V8 427Ci engine with an actual power output of over 500 horsepower, light as a 6-cylinder engine, but strong as a beast. The problem was, GM wrapped it in the body of a street Camaro and sold it for nearly $7,200. At that time, it was more expensive than the Corvette L88. This sky-high price made dealerships unprofitable, even losing money if they displayed the car without selling it. A dealer named Fred Gibb ordered 50 units. The result? He sold only 13 cars. The rest had to be returned to the factory. GM, confused, had to redistribute the unsold stock to other dealerships, like a quiet clearance sale. To make matters worse, the ZL1 had no full warranty, required racing fuel, and when driven on the streets, it was noisy, rough, and extremely difficult to handle. Only 69 units were produced. Today, the ZL1 is a holy grail worth millions in the collector world. But in 1969, it was the fastest Camaro to be abandoned by customers in history. Looking back at these models, we can clearly see one thing: even major car manufacturers like Chevrolet make mistakes from time to time. It could be due to the race for technology, pressure from competition, or simply a design flaw from the start. Do you currently own, or have you ever driven, any of the cars on this list? Or do you know of another Chevy model that left an even bigger impression? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on future exciting content about classic cars and fascinating mysteries in the automotive industry. Thanks for watching until the end. See you in the next video.